The next time someone questions the need for proper attic ventilation, tell them this. Improper attic ventilation can reduce the life of the shingle on your roof 24%. Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Airing It Out with AirVent. My name is Paul Schelsey. I host AirVent's Attic Ventilation Ask the Expert seminars, offered every winter to residential roofing professionals all across North America since 1998. We polled roofing pros, most of them contractors, and asked, in your experience, what percentage of shingle life reduction do you see because of incorrect or zero attic ventilation? The survey results came back that shingle life is cut short 24%. The reason we conducted the survey in the first place is because of comments we receive at our seminars. During the lively Q&A exchange, some attendees politely challenged the third-party research we've been sharing. That research cites shingle life reduction is 10% due to improper attic ventilation. Our seminar attendees encouraged AirVent to talk to actual roofing contractors who see roofs every day. Greta Bayrami was one of those roofing professionals who participated in the survey. Greta is CEO of Golden Group Roofing in Westboro, Massachusetts, and she is our guest today. Greta, I butchered your name. I'm sorry. Welcome to the podcast, Greta.
No, you did good. It's an Albanian name, so maybe not as common. But thank you so much, Paul, for having me. I'm excited to talk ventilation with you. And I will say that you taught me my first ventilation. I remember seeing you at the international roof conventions that I used to go to when I first opened my business. And I would come over to your booth that had the little demonstration of the attic vents and the ridge vents. And I would watch there, mesmerized, as a young professional, as I educated myself, because obviously at the age of 21, I didn't even know that homes needed that. I didn't even know I had one in my home. I had to go outside my mom's house and say, oh, that was cool. But now I've obviously gained a lot of knowledge, and I constantly remind myself that there are people just like me out there that don't know that there is even something happening in their attic.
Awesome. Thank you. I remember that encounter and meeting you, Greta. And you're still very young, by the way. So you were extra young then. So
Yes.
Hey, I'm real excited to have you with us today. Thank you. And thank you for the flashback. Greta, your market obviously is on the East Coast. Our survey included roofing professionals across North America. And the consensus was this: improper attic ventilation can negatively impact the life of the roof. From that survey, Greta, I have a list of specific examples of documented shingle damage and shingle life lost. Could you please comment on each, explaining why it's concerning as I reveal them? And I'll go through them. Yeah, thank you. I'll go through them one by one and share what you want to share about them. So the first, extreme to complete granule loss.
Yeah, we see this a lot. I mean, we see this sometimes on brand new roofs too, where homeowners are just like, oh, I have so much gangers on my gutters. What's happening? There's a product failure. Okay, sure. So we'll get the product rep out there, actually have something just fresh of mind because it just happened. It's top of my mind already. We had everybody out there, myself, the inspector, and, it was tough to convince the homeowner that, no, there was nothing wrong with the product. It's just that the property wasn't ventilated or insulated properly. And it was just allowing, and it was a designer series shingles, a much heavier shingle, and It was allowing for a lot more moisture to be trapped, and a lot of granular loss was occurring. And it was tough to tell it to the homeowner because here they are, they've invested a lot of money into this home, and nobody likes being told that maybe they missed something.
Sure. And Greta, if I may, if you're losing excessive granules, what is that indicating? What's the problem with that? Why is that a concern?
Well, because we're going to prematurely age that shingle, and we're going to reveal already the fiber mat, which is going to absorb a lot of moisture. But my most concerning thing is that the shingle is going to start absorbing water. Mm-hmm. And then homeowners don't know where the leak's coming from. As a trained professional, I know the leak is not coming when I see granulosa, my first instinct is that water, that shingles becoming a sponge. We're
Yes.
starting to absorb water on the roof. And sometimes, they'll have many people service the roof, and I go there, and just by being on the ground, I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with maybe the way your roof was installed, or maybe there could be, but I'm here to tell you that your shingle's acting like a sponge where it's just absorbing water. And that's really tough to convince somebody that that's what's happening, because their first instinct is like, the flashing's not right, the chimney's done wrong, the valley's done wrong.
They're looking for a leak source. Yeah, I like that word, sponge, Greta. We don't want the shingles to be a sponge. No,
absolutely not.
Greta, the next item on the list of damage, blistering on the shingles.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is very concerning as well. We see more brittle and curled shingles here in the East Coast, I would say.
Yes.
But blistering of shingles is something that is very common. I don't think I see as much as other states. I mean, I see more brittle shingles and more curled shingles.
Yes.
So that's what I'm mainly, coming across out here. But I'm sure you can comment more on the blistering than I can.
Yeah, but basically, if you've got blistering shingles, again, it's another indication that the shingle is prematurely aging, and we don't want that to happen to the shingle sooner than it needs to be happening.
Yeah.
Greta, how about shingles curled up on the end? They're curling up.
Yeah, this is very typical in the East Coast. We see a lot of curled shingles. Obviously, this is a good indication that the property likely has had poor ventilation, or it could have a long combination of things. Usually it's insulation as well. It happens here in New England very typically. Sometimes people blame it automatically to a cheaper shingle. Automatically, the consumer says, oh, no, my shingle's curled because it was a really bad manufacturer that I picked the first time around. And they think that if somebody offers them a more premium manufacturer the second time around, it's going to fix the problem. And I know maybe roofers listening to this are agreeing and disagreeing. I actually get dinged really hard here in the East Coast because I'm the only roofing professional that goes into the home and I address the roofing system. I address the ventilation. I want to bring the trim and the rot up to par. And other roofers go in there and they just want to do the roof. And I'm looked at as the guy that wants to nickel and dime the homeowner. I'm looked as the guy that wants to sell the homeowner most things. But usually when a homeowner hits me with those kind of comments back, I know it's another roofer speaking. And I tell the homeowner, look, if you wanted me to give you exactly what you had up there, you should have told me that first, because I could have been that other guy. I thought you called me because you hated that problem and you wanted me to upgrade the home, bring the home up to code. And I think that's one of the biggest thing in our industry that we have to educate ourselves as professionals, bring the property up to code every single time. Every 30 years that you have a chance to redo the roof, bring it up to code. Take an assessment of how the building codes have risen, what the manufacturers have done, what science has done to improve our products. And that's my goal as a roofer when I go into the home. It's not to give the homeowner what it needs. It's to give the home what it needs to come up to code, because I'm in New England. Homes are 200 years old. If I left them in the same state that they were designed, we'd see curled shingles every 10 years.
Yeah.
So
good. I love a couple things you said. And by the way, you've said insulation twice now. Thank you. I probably should mention for listeners that while ventilation is very important for the life of the roof, it's part of a system, if I could use that word. It's part of an overall system, and proper attic ventilation, the right amount of insulation is also part of that. So thanks for bringing that up. I also like, Greta, because we've had other guests bring this up. You can tell when the homeowner has talked to other contractors who maybe aren't as thorough as you, either by choice or they're in a hurry. But I like that you're explaining to the homeowner. First of all, you're getting in there. You're getting in the attic. You're looking at it, right? You're taking a look at what's going on, and you're explaining the full story of what's needed. So thanks for sharing that. I like that. Yeah, that's extra. That's great.
Thank you.
Greta, how about brittle shingles? I know you've already mentioned that you see those on the East Coast. Why would brittle shingles be a concern?
I mean, brittle shingles is shingle that just hasn't aired, hasn't gotten enough air. It's like a human's body without oxygen. That's the way I explain it to my clients. It's like somebody who hasn't taken deep breaths has only pumped their lungs at 30% their whole life, and now they're realizing their lungs is going to collapse. That's what brittle shingles mean to me, and that's the way I try to tell a homeowner. As a home, it's particles, right? It's living organisms. How do I mean? This is wood, and this is wood, and this is asphalt, and there's all these natural causes. So we need to let the home breathe. And I think when you break that down and you make a homeowner realize how a home breathes, and you make them understand why a home needs to continue breathing and better each year, then they start to understand. And you explain to them why you have brittle shingles, why these shingles. And, again, the first response is bad material, lack of underlayment, which is, the layers that go underneath the asphalt shingles. Sure, those can be indicators as well. However, what if it was just that? What if the home just didn't have deep breaths? And what was done to make sure that the property was breathing properly? Was there intake? Was there outtake? I've seen roofs with, maybe GAS certainty, and top manufacturers don't want me to say this, but I've seen roofs with just shingles, no asphalt, no underlayment, no weather wash, none of that. But because they had great ventilation, I've seen the shingle live out its full life. So I'm not saying that you should do that, but I'm saying that's a great indication to show you that when a house fully breathes and takes those nice, healthy, deep breaths, and you contribute to that as a homeowner, then the shingle can actually do its job, sometimes even solely. I'm not saying that's a recommendation by any means, but I've seen it being done, and I've sat there I've sat there just with this awe, looking at the roof and saying, oh my God, like this shingle did its job because everything else was doing its job as well. Right. And that's something that's really it's something that we as roofers must sit there and make the homeowner understand that we are just the roofers. We are not, here to do everything, unless, of course, you tell us to do everything, or we can bring other people that can help it. But the home is a system, and I keep going back to that, and I will always go back to that. Everything works together. The siding works with the windows work with the doors, the roofs works with the deck and the insulation and the ventilation, and it's they're tied, And when homeowners want to laugh a little bit, and when homeowners want to laugh a little bit, it's like telling somebody that I want a kitchen, but failing to say that you need the cabinets and the marble and the sink and so
right.
A roof is only so much.
Various elements, yeah. Hey, Greta, I like that you use. I say breathe also very frequently, but saying the word oxygen. I mean, everybody can relate to that, and the lack of oxygen to help communicate that story. I think that drives it home real good to the homeowner. Great,
yeah.
Thanks, Greta. Greta, you've touched upon this, but could we explore premature dry out as another indicator?
I mean, again, this is something you constantly are going to see, and it could be sometimes I think prematurely drying out, I almost want to ding insulation more so than ventilation. Okay. That's just my natural instinct there. We see this quite a lot in homes, and homeowners tend to always say that, again, that maybe the roof shingles weren't good. Again, they always want to reach out to the manufacturer. When they see premature dry out, they don't necessarily go after the labor, the craftsmanship. This always is like, get the manufacturer out here, get the manager out here. I want to file a claim. And, sometimes they're not necessarily my clients, but I've been pulled into claims to assist homeowners. And sometimes there's not much to do. There are times where I can help them out to a certain extent. Yes. And there are other times that there's only so much I can do. Again, it's bringing it back to making the client realize all the components that make up the roofing system, and that we must do our job together to ventilate homes. And I'm a big believer in ventilation, and I think it's crucial to the roofing system. And I think sometimes it sucks. I will say this. It sucks. Maybe you don't want to hear this, Paul, but it sucks staying there and doing all the work and pulling out the trim apart and doing all the soffit cavities again. Yes. It's not fun. It's not fun, especially when it's a 100-year-old home. But I feel like we got to do it, right? We got to do it because we have to have our craftsmanship speak for itself. And we have to, if it takes just one person doing it the right way, then we help just one more person out there, so they never have to deal with the brittle shingles. They never have to deal with, the granular loss. And it's like, is the person listening going to be that roofer that just ignores it, gives them the shingles? Sure, you made a lot of money. Sure, you moved on faster. I'm probably stuck 4 days. You probably moved on to the next job, the next day. But you're not going to be known as that guy that helps people out. You're not going to be known as the guy that alleviates problems from homeowners. And you're not going to be that guy the homeowners rave about because you helped them with a problem that every 20 years or every 15 years they have to keep, trying to solve.
You're not going to be the one that made a difference, Greta.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Greta, as I listened to you, if I may, a roofer in Wisconsin recently interacted with me and expressed his frustration. He did the roof properly maybe 10 years ago. Then the insulation contractor came in and jam-packed the insulation, blocking the soffit vents. And basically said, this is not fun to go back and redo what I did correctly the first time around. Anyway, you reminded me of that. But it is unfortunately the path we have to take sometime. Not we, I'm not the roofer. You're a roofer. But the contractor has to take that path to get it right sometime. So thanks for sharing that, Greta. Greta, how about cracking and fracturing throughout the shingle as a sign of premature life lost?
Yeah, we see this. We see this a lot because obviously we're dealing with hot, cold, extreme temperatures out here.
Yes.
And hot, cold, when not properly, ventilated and insulated can lead to cracking. And cracking of shingles is obviously no fun because it's an immediate leak source. For anybody listening that might be new, I mean, when shingles crack, it's an immediate leak source, the next tough winter that comes around, something we do not want. And this obviously happens as the shingles, shrink or as they deal with tough, extreme weather.
Yes.
And this is what could happen to a shingle. Again, I know that our first instinct is to blame this on the actual shingle itself, but I think shingle manufacturers have done such a great job of upgrading their products. So if you're a roofer out there and you keep saying, oh, my client's shingles are cracking, maybe you want to go back and evaluate the way you're addressing what contributes to the shingle cracking. So if what contributes to the shingle cracking is not ventilating it properly or insulating it properly in the winter months, then are you, and I understand you're a roofer. It's not your job to insulate the home. Maybe you don't offer that service, but at least let the homeowner know that, right? Because if they called you there because they have a cracking shingle and you are just replaced the shingle, but you didn't tell them what's causing it, then you didn't do them anything. If anything, you opened yourself up to a bad review or worse, a bad lawsuit, which I've seen some roofers here be a part of. And that's sad because I always tell my team, when you arrive to the property, just make sure you first identify why they called you, because what if why they called you, cannot be addressed by you, right? Like if I'm calling you because my house is cold and I think the siding is gonna fix it, well, maybe I'm here to tell you it's not, right? And if I'm calling you because I'm losing so much heat and I think the roof's gonna fix it, well, maybe you can't, right? Maybe the insulation is the indicator of that. So listen to the homeowner, listen why they called you. Because you got to address that first before you go into your full presentation or your full consultation approach in roofing. Because if they're telling you they have cracked shingles and it's a 15-year-old roof and you give them shingles again and you give them a great roofing system, doesn't matter. You did not understand why the property was doing that. You just assumed that it was because it was a bad shingle or improperly installed. Yes. And maybe that's not the case. And I see sometimes roofers get in trouble with this, and it breaks my heart because obviously bad reviews suck. When a client tries to take you to court, it's not fun. But my thing with this is listen and be the guy that walks away, be the guy that says, hey, you know what? I'm here to tell you that your property is horribly insulated. You need to contact a professional, to give you an assessment. Or I'm here to tell you that, you have zero ventilation and maybe I can't do that, but let me get you somebody that can. And if you're having those kind of conversations, they will always give you the roof. They will, because you're the only person that let them know what it was that was causing their problems in the first place.
I like that, Greta. I like that approach. Greta, as we've been talking here these past few minutes, listing the various shingle damage, what's potentially happening to the roof deck all along?
Rot.
Right? I mean, that's a possibility, right, Greta?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime that I'm seeing brittle shingles, cracked shingles, any of the areas that we spoke about, my next biggest concern is the roof decking. With the price of CDX plywood right now in 2021 being where it is, It's expensive to reinforce wood decking or change plywood, right? Because it's an expensive product to not only take away, but to properly install with H clips and all the regulations.
The whole process, yes.
So here we are now. Here's this homeowner. He's got issues. He's likely replacing his roof much sooner than all his neighbors. And on top of that, we have to break the news of the roof decking. It's an unfortunate situation. Roof deckings almost 80% of the time have to get replaced when you have an issue of shingles that have become sponges of water, or, or shingles that have cracked and are curled. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that this is conversations you likely want to have very early on with your client. So I would say almost 80% of the time when there's a ventilation or an insulation problem in the property, you're faced with reinforcing the deck or switching out plywood sheets on the roof deck.
Thanks, Greta, for sharing that. Greta, obviously, zero attic ventilation is not good. Also not good is having some ventilation, but not enough. This means the quantity of vents is not enough for the attic's size. It's square footage, measured length times width, floor of the attic. To work effectively year-round, the attic ventilation system needs to be balanced with an equal amount of intake vents at the soffit or low on the roof's edge, and exhaust vents at or near the roof's peak. Greta, have you seen shingle damage due to attic ventilation that's in place, but it's out of balance? The intake and exhaust ratio is out of whack, or flat out, there just is not enough overall attic ventilation?
Yeah, of course. We see this quite a bit. I mean, I see this sometimes in big colonial homes where it's newer construction and where maybe, the general contractor that built a home just decided to just give it like a very fine little line of air intake going around, just a little, just to say it did it. Or sometimes it's, it looks like there's something there, but it's non-existent. But what really concerned me is when you see these bigger homes that just have no peak, right? Like they just have just the tiniest little ridge, and that's all the homeowner is concerned about. So those are the type of properties that I see a lot of issues with. And again, these are these bigger homes, usually finished attics. So we see this problem a lot in New England. Where we also see this problem is obviously in ranch homes or Cape style homes.
Yes.
Very common here that they don't even have a soffit. A lot of people don't know what to do in that scenario. So what they do, they tell the homeowner, like, let's just do all these roof louver vents everywhere. We'll add some gables. Like it'll be great. So poor homeowner thinks he's got it figured out, and they don't. So those are in New England very typical. You either go into a home that just has some attempt at ventilation, or you go into a home that has a very small ridge, or you go into the homes that of course have mixed match of everything. And that's happening right now because of classes or events such as yours, where people come and hear you talk and they want to do everything you're saying, but they also leave all the other stuff there too. So They add the ridge vent, they add the soffit intake, and then they also leave the roof louvers. They leave the gables. Maybe they'll even throw in a nice solar component vent. I see that a lot too, and I think the last part is probably the most concerning, is because as roofers gain more knowledge, they also are not getting rid of the previous attic ventilation that was there.
Yes, thank you, Greta. Greta, mixed types of exhaust is a very common problem across North America. Contractors have shared with us, and we dedicated a previous episode of our podcast just to that topic. It's just when you mix the types, they fight each other. It short circuits the airflow. It's inefficient. Thanks for sharing that, Greta. You also mentioned, you kind of teased, probably unintentionally, complex roofs. The audience doesn't know this, but you helped AirVent write an article, not yet published, I hope it will be soon, venting complex roofs. I think I might have you come back in the future, Greta. Maybe we take a stab at a couple sample of complex roofs. But thank you for talking about that. So far
Absolutely.
We've talked about the various visual signs of the shingle prematurely aging, deteriorating. The deck could be aging, and that's a problem because deck material is expensive, plus the time and labor. Yeah. We talked about mixing exhaust being a problem. You don't want to mix. We're all about having plenty of ventilation, but we don't want to mix types. So we talked about that. Greta, I'd like to talk about one more thing, please. It's related to this.
Sure.
It's basically, Greta, matching the right type of exhaust vent, not the brand, but the type, to the roof's geometry or shape. Making sure that the vent chosen is the best choice for that roof. Because honestly, not every type of vent is well suited for the roof. Mm-hmm. If the roof shape is not factored in when you're choosing the vent type, the attic ventilation for that roof might not be able to deliver the best results. For example, if the roof has a long, generous, horizontal peak, it's a good candidate for a ridge vent. If it doesn't have a good horizontal peak, well, then ridge vent probably is not the answer. You might be looking at maybe a power fan, if the customer likes a power fan, if you like power fans, Greta, or box vents. Do you feel comfortable, Greta, commenting on the importance of matching the type to the roof shape?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually am a big advocate of that. However, I will say that we're a long way, Paul, from properly educating not only the roofing contractors, but the building inspectors. The reason you're probably seeing this come up as a huge issue is because the building inspectors alongside the contractors are not properly educated. And because there was a big push in the last 10 years for ridge vent, inspectors are almost saying, no ridge vent, roof fails, which is shocking, right? Because here you are telling them that conversations like you and I are having, where here you are, where you're telling them, look, that ridge is not going to vent at all. Let me put in a solar vent, right? Let me put in a solar powered vent that's going to allow this to breathe. And they don't want that, right? So I think this is a very important issue for the next 5-10 years in the roofing industry, is we got to bring up the education of the roofers in ventilation, but also the building inspectors. Yes. Because the building inspectors are not necessarily here with us yet. So we don't see eye to eye. So I think a lot of roofers listening to this, sure, they might know what works based on what they're hearing you say. Sure, they might know what works based on the training GF, Certainty, Owens, all these great companies out there might have given them. However, they need to get a building inspector to pass the project, right? Especially in states like Massachusetts, where a permit final approval is a must. And in order to do that, they're going to just please the inspector, not necessarily please the property or do what they've been told is right to do. So I think this last topic becomes a very gray area, because a roofer, I might know what might work best for that property, but I have 3 roofers who are screaming ridge vent. So if I don't scream ridge vent too, I'm all of a sudden like I don't want to give it to the client.
Yes.
And I think you're not everybody, and I may be that person, because I think my branding and the way I've positioned myself puts me already in that perspective. But I don't know if a younger roofer listening to this wants to even take that hassle. Why would he want to already put himself against the storm, right? Like, yeah, sure, you might say, it's going to put you in a different place, it's going to make you unique to the homeowner. But maybe he doesn't want to take that chance. Maybe he doesn't want to take the chance with ventilation, because maybe it's not an area that he feels very comfortable about. Remember, ventilation is still not an area that many roofers feel comfortable about. So if they're only at 50% comfortability with ventilation, and now they know based on your training that they should offer alternatives, they might not do it simply because they don't want to go up against a storm with other roofers who are just screaming, ridge vent, because that's what they've been told to sell on their bullet points.
Right.
Or with the building inspector, who maybe is a little bit outdated and doesn't understand what it is that we are trying to do. So this is a very complex topic. This is one that I'm very passionate about. We can get on a whole other podcast about it. But I'm very passionate about getting building codes, inspectors, manufacturers to come up to the same level of education when it comes to ventilation, as we've learned that it's one of the key indicators of roof longevity.
Greta, I've made a note to myself listening to you that we will do a better job of reaching out purposely to inspectors and try and educate them and get them on the same page. Thank you for sharing that, Greta. Fantastic. Greta, cost is an obvious consequence of having to replace shingles before their full service life is reached. And you've touched upon that a bit when you mentioned about the roof deck. There's time, there's labor, materials involved in replacing prematurely aged shingles. Greta, how do you respond to clients, homeowners, who are unwilling to have proper attic ventilation for the brand new roof you're being hired to install? If you get that pushback.
Yeah. So the Greta 8 years ago would have probably dealt with it.
Okay.
Let's be real. No, I'm going to be very real because there's people listening here that maybe, I'll be very honest. When I first started my business, I needed the money, the capital to survive, right? I couldn't pick and choose and say, oh, I'm going to walk away from this job because, you don't want to do what I want to do. I would say to the homeowner, okay, I would try to cover myself, leave a note, write an email, so they acknowledge it, whatever I can do that it doesn't come to harm me, because I was so young and I was just getting started.
Yes.
Because not a lot of homeowners agreed with me. I had homeowners that even called me a diva. They were like, oh, you want to give me all these things. I just want to do a roof. Do you want to do the roof or not? Or can I call somebody else? Of course, I wasn't going to tell the homeowner, no, call somebody else. I needed the cash flow. I needed to survive,
Right.
my first years in business. But the Greta I am today, 10 years later, I'm in a position where I could tell the homeowner, no, right? And that approach has worked for me today, but I think it's only worked for me because of the brand power that I hold today in my marketplace, right? And the homeowners are actually attracted to that. So if you're a company that's healthy, you're a company that's large, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to push back on the client, because ultimately they're only going to yield you respect. When a customer tells me I don't want to do that, and I tell them, well, unfortunately, I can't do your roof. Because why? Because I tell them I'm like a Michelin star restaurant. I will only be known for the best of the best. I cannot have you messing up my secret sauce and my secret formula in the line that's out the door. And when I say that, when I'm very cocky about it, and if I may put it in quotation, I only do that. I only do that to put it in perspective. I am a Michelin star restaurant, and I have a line out the door. If you don't want to work with me and you don't want to have the secret of flavors of what I'm creating here, that's okay, because there's going to be somebody right behind you that appreciates what I'm doing. And I cannot lower my craft just to meet your budget point or just to meet your wants. And I think it's very important, because budget is very important. I tell my team and myself every day, money's so important. However, you would never tell a client that for $5,000 extra, you could have got the problem fixed, right? You would never go back to the client and say, oh, well, in 28, you told me you can only afford 20 grand. That's why I gave you that roof with no ventilation. Because if you had paid me 24, the roof, we wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't be suing me. So I like to take that conversation that we might have with a client 10 years down the road and then have it on day one of the relationship.
Right.
Because everybody can allocate a little bit more money. I'm a big believer that, I've met all kinds of people in my life. I'm very open about my story. I started from absolutely nothing, living paycheck to paycheck, no welfare. And I'll tell you that even when I had nothing to my name, I would have spent an extra $1 for men fixing my problems. I think every person will. Nobody wants to have the same problem continuously. And I think it's up to you as a roofer to stand strong and tell a homeowner that, and have that conversation on day one, rather than day 400, 500, when they're giving you a call because they're not satisfied because of something you did, or if a building inspector failed their roof, whatever the case may be. I have those conversations on day one. Be a little strong about it, but be respectful to the client. Yes. And you'll be surprised the kind of response you will get. I thought people were going to tell me to get out of their home. I thought people were going to hang up the phone on me.
Sure.
But you know what? People were like, I respect you. You're the only person that ever said that to me. Yeah. We have salespeople that come into the office every day sharing experiences like that, where they've told the customer, look, at Golden Group, as much as I want to do your roof, I can't do it because my owner won't let me do anything other than, what's right. And unfortunately, what's right is not what you're asking for. And she's not willing to compromise everything that we've built, the partnerships that we've built with the manufacturers, with the building inspectors, for this particular project. And I've had clients handshake me and say, you know what, that's respectable.
I respect that. Yeah. Greta, thank you so much for that very candid opening and sharing with us. I wrote down 2 things that extra caught my attention. Secret sauce. I like the secret sauce. And I'm not going to lower my craft to meet your reduced budget. It's just not something I can do. Thank you, Greta. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're listening out there, and it doesn't matter if you're a 100-year-old company or if you're a brand new company, I think you got to take it back to that restaurant perspective. I grew up in the restaurant environment, so I always do. If you have a really good dish, people will hear about it and they will come. You just got to be patient. And, the product is not made by us, but the service is, right? The way we install things are. And that's your secret. And hold on to that as long as you can. And as long as you do it differently than everybody else and you put your heart and soul into every single step of the roofing system, that's you. That's you right there. You are not the Shingles. You are not AirVent. Paul is part of AirVent. You are the person that's installing this roof. So give it all you got into that installation and watch the power behind that.
I love that, Greta. Greta, that's a nice little summary, I think, for this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed our conversation, Greta. Greta, is there any final tidbit for our audience before we wind things up?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say that I know ventilation is tough. I really do. I get it. I hear the roofers frustrated sometimes. I completely understand. But I think the more you do it, it becomes habit. I remember the first few years, doing a whole soffit, redesign to have better airflow, putting all these crazy vents sometimes, like the S400, I think I forget the actual name right now, but doing all these things sometimes, it was just, it was so overwhelming on site. But I think the more we did them, now we became experts in them, and now we're one of the only companies that addresses them. So I think if you're new to ventilation and you're a little shy about it, I understand. I feel you. I was there too. I know it takes an extra day. I know that's more money out of your payroll. I get it. But the more you do it and the moment you become an expert at it, it will be your differentiate, it'll be the thing that makes you different at the kitchen table. It will be the thing that sets you apart from everybody else, because nobody will be talking about it. And you'll be the only guy in the room not only talking about it, but educating others about it. And that could be your secret sauce too. So don't be afraid to give to invest in ventilation, not only for yourself, but for your team and for your men out there and women that are working.
Awesome, Greta. And if you are new to attic ventilation and you're listening, we do have some helpful resources on our website, airvent.com, including AirVent University, and we videotaped a seminar that you can watch. Greta, I want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Sure.
I want to thank you for your time today. We appreciate your sharing your knowledge and experience with us. On behalf of AirVent, the industry, and homeowners, thank you, Greta.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Greta, can I try one more time? Greta Bayrami.
There you go.
All right.
Greta Bayrami, that's it. Thanks so much, Paul. Hope you enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully more and more people will invest time in ventilation knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Don't allow improper attic ventilation to be the reason a brand new shingles life is cut short 24%. Give those attics sufficient intake and exhaust airflow. Well, that wraps up this episode. Please leave a review on iTunes if you'd like, and be sure to let us know if there's a topic you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Maybe you'd like to be a guest one day like Greta was a guest. Drop us a note on the podcast page of our website, airvent.com. And please come back for more Airing It Out with AirVent. I'm Paul Shelsey. Thanks for listening.